Attention! All things shared in this video are simply the opinions of the Unexplained Files. The following footage is not tampered with, and all of the events and reactions are unplanned and genuine.
We're going to talk to you about the most urgent thing that is on our mind.
After death, the cult members believed they would be transported to a happier world by a spacecraft they thought was trailing the Hale-Bopp comet.
I just want to say how thankful I am to Doe and T for helping me and taking me under their wing.
And what we suspect is the most urgent thing on the minds of those who will connect with us.
I can say with absolute, undeniable certainty that Doe was the second coming of Jesus.
Your only chance to survive or evacuate is to leave with us. I'll tell you about a kingdom level beyond here, and if you want to go there, then you have to follow me, because I'm the guy who's got the key at the moment. And it requires that you, if you move into that evolutionary kingdom, that you leave behind everything of human ways, human behavior, human ignorance. Those who are trying to prepare themselves for entry into the evolutionary level above human, synonymous with the kingdom of God, the kingdom of heaven.
Founded in the mid-70s and running all the way up until the end of the 90s, Heaven's Gate was an American cult that would one day shock the world with their belief in the occult, Christian theology, ufology, and extraterrestrial beings. Heaven's Gate is one of the most unique cults that the United States has ever seen.
Marshall Applewhite was born on May 17, 1931, in Spur, Texas, a small town known for its ranching heritage. The son of a Presbyterian minister, he was raised in a deeply religious environment. This upbringing instilled in him a strong foundation in Christian doctrine and an early exposure to religious leadership, which would later play a pivotal role in his life. Applewhite's early years were marked by a seemingly typical American upbringing. He attended local schools and was known for his musical talent, particularly in singing. His passion for music led him to study at Austin College, where he earned a degree in philosophy in 1952. Despite his promising start, Applewhite's life took a series of tumultuous turns. His career was interrupted by a stint in the US Army, and his personal life saw significant upheaval with the end of his marriage in the 1960s. The couple's dissolution of his marriage, coupled with a crisis of faith and identity, led Applewhite into a period of deep introspection and search for meaning. Their meeting was serendipitous and transformative. Applewhite was visiting a hospital where Nettles worked, seeking help for a variety of personal and emotional issues. Nettles, intrigued by his spiritual quest, recognized in Applewhite a kindred spirit. She shared with him her own experiences and beliefs, which included a deep fascination with astrology, theosophy, and the idea of extraterrestrial life. Nettles and Applewhite began to refer to themselves as the Two, or the UFO Two, claiming that they were the witnesses prophesied in the Book of Revelation. They preached that they were on a mission to prepare select followers for an evolutionary leap into a higher existence, often describing this transition in terms of being taken aboard a spacecraft.
Marshall and Bonney, aka Doe and T, would teach that people could be chemically and physically altered into becoming extraterrestrial beings, and that when doing so they would evolve to the next evolutionary level, and they would be taken away by a UFO to live in this next evolutionary kingdom, also known as the Christian Kingdom of Heaven and Kingdom of God. Marshall and Bonney would use Christian teachings and analogies to bring their message to the masses. After their meeting and many discussions about Christian theology and attempting to interpret the Bible in a different way, they both had come to believe that they were beings of higher existence, that they had a sort of divine mission to take souls to the next evolutionary level, which they believed that Jesus Christ was teaching 2,000 years ago. As the reincarnation of Jesus Christ, Marshall's goal was to rise to this new evolutionary kingdom, as he called it. And both he and Bonney would attempt to bring as many of their followers as they could with them, giving them an opportunity to go with them to this kingdom of heaven and kingdom of God.
Sharon Morgan, an early devotee, was captivated by the message Applewhite and Nettles preached. She was drawn to their vision of extraterrestrial salvation and a promise of ascension to a higher state of being. Morgan became deeply involved, helping to spread the teachings and recruit new members. The early days were marked by a sense of urgency and secrecy as the group moved frequently and avoided authorities. The crimes associated with Heaven's Gate in its early stage were subtle but impactful. The most significant early transgression was the psychological manipulation and coercion used by Applewhite and Nettles to maintain control over their followers. They isolated members from their families, enforced strict communal living, and required members to renounce their previous lives. The leaders insisted on absolute obedience and adherence to their teachings, which were a mix of Christianity, eschatology, New Age beliefs, and science fiction. Financial exploitation was another early crime. Members were often persuaded to donate their life savings to the group, leaving them financially destitute. The funds were used to sustain the group's activities and ensure the leader's lifestyle. These actions laid the groundwork for the more severe consequences that would follow. As the group grew, their practices became more extreme. Members were subjected to intense indoctrination, cut off from the outside world, and encouraged to abandon their identities. The psychological toll on early members, like Sharon Morgan, was immense, leading to a deepening dependency on the cult and its leaders.
Marshall and Bonney's followers, or T and Doe's followers, lived a very strict and regimented life. They lived a monastic life of disconnection, removing themselves from the human. Their family members did not know where they were or what they were doing. Every moment of their life was decided from the activity they were doing to how long they were doing it for. They would brush their teeth for a strict length of time, they would shower for a strict length of time, they would sleep for an exact amount of time with an exact group of people. They were not allowed to have individual opinions. They were not allowed to have sexual contact. They were scarcely allowed physical contact with one another. They would fast and juice cleanse to remove the need of nutrients of this world, to free themselves of the struggle of hunger. Their goal, ultimately, was to free themselves from the needs of the human body. Marshall was not shy about sharing his beliefs. There was a website you could visit that would give you all sorts of information about the beliefs of the Heaven's Gate cult. Just as they weren't shy about their beliefs, they weren't shy about their mission either. Possibly the most infamous and well-known media created by the Heaven's Gate cult are the indoctrination tapes, and all of the tapes in which Marshall can speak for hours about his beliefs and how you can follow him and the Heaven's Gate cult to reach the next evolutionary level before this world is recycled. His ability to speak for such long periods of time had a way of turning off your rationally thinking mind. You just listened and heard what he had to say, and it either made sense or it didn't.
In the early 1980s, Bonnie Nettles was diagnosed with cancer. Despite their belief that they were chosen by higher beings to lead their followers on to an ascended state, Nettles' illness and subsequent death in 1985 posed a direct challenge to their teachings. Heaven's Gate members believed they would collectively ascend to a higher plane of existence without experiencing physical death. Nettles' death forced Applewhite to reframe their beliefs. He interpreted her passing as having completed her mission and ascended ahead of the group. This shift in narrative allowed Applewhite to maintain control over the group, emphasizing that Nettles was still guiding them from beyond. He reassured the members that physical death was merely a transition to a new level of existence, which was an essential part of the journey. The changes following Nettle's death had a profound effect on the Heaven's Gate doctrine. The focus shifted more towards the necessity of leaving their physical bodies to reach the next level. Nettle's illness and death, therefore, was pivotal in reshaping the group's beliefs and confirming their commitment to the idea of transcending human existence through a physical and spiritual transformation.
Not a lot was heard from the members of Heaven's Gate. It was mostly ran, and the media front was led by Marshall himself. And although they were well known in their time, even the BBC reached out to them for the potential participation in Luther's Weird Weekends, of which they declined. Sometime between the 19th of March and the 26th of March, coinciding with the closest pass of the Hale-Bopp comet, the members of Heaven's Gate would prepare themselves and eventually undergo a ritual suicide, believing that trailing the Hale-Bopp comet was the UFO that was about to take their spirits to the next level. To take their lives, the members took a mixture of phenobarbital mixed with pudding or applesauce, consumed the mixture alongside vodka, and tied plastic bags on their heads so that they would fall asleep for the final time. Marshall, or Doe, was the third to last person to pass away. And just like the rest, a purple shroud was placed upon his head. The final two members of the cult to pass away were found with the bags still wrapped around their head, unfortunately no shrouds to cover them. The media coverage and perhaps the fear-mongering that had been in the indoctrination tapes inspired many copycat suicides. Even a year after the event of the mass suicide, there were still people mimicking the beliefs and actions of Heaven's Gate cult and taking their own lives in similar fashion, believing that they could call down the spaceship and that they could go with those who left before them. Perhaps the shocking nature of the Heaven's Gate cult keeps them in our mind long after they depart this world. From references in TV shows to movies and even video games, Heaven's Gate has clearly left a mark on our collective consciousness. The cult was even referenced in 2018's We Happy Few. Encountered in the game as the cult known as the Space People, they believed that if you wanted liberation, you had to leave your flesh bag so that you could be taken on to the next level. Certainly an unfortunate tragedy, but one we cannot forget. Although an unfortunate topic, I think it's important that we recount events like this. Though to most, the beliefs and actions of the Heaven's Gate cult may seem like insanity, we have to remember that many people were convinced and many people lost their lives. To all those who lost their lives, we hope that you rest in peace. And for all those that have joined us for this video, keep a careful eye out there. You don't know who's going to try to take advantage of you. We hope you've enjoyed this evening's video, and we'll hope to catch you again in the next one. Peace.
The most urgent thing that is on our mind, and what we suspect is the most urgent thing on the minds of those who will connect with us. We'll title this tape Planet Earth About to be Recycled.